Y'all, Wizard101 just made a major announcement that we need to talk about. At long last, after what feels like weeks, we finally have an official release date for the level 180 Darkmoor update. Yes, I'm talking about live realm. So they put out this tweet. They've announced the maintenance already. It's literally tonight, which means by Thursday morning, October 13th, the level 180 Darkmoor update is gonna hit the live servers. Now, I honestly was expecting this next week because it's actually pretty rare that they put out an update on a Thursday, and I think they did delay it a little bit more than expected. But obviously, there is a lot to talk about with such a major update hitting live servers. I've heard a lot of people asking a couple of big questions that I wanted to talk about today. One, how easy is this world to solo? When this update hits live servers tomorrow, can you tackle it alone? And how farmable is the gear? How worth it is it to actually get to the new level cap of 180? What are you actually getting out of this update on paper? Now, in terms of difficulty, especially for soloing, Wiz has been doing a very, very interesting thing recently, and a lot of people like it, a lot of people don't. And it's like a new way that they organize the world that really does affect its difficulty. And I wanted to trace this back to when it started. I think the best example of this is definitely in Wallaroo. This is gonna be a blast from the past if you haven't done Wallaroo in a while, but basically, right, I don't know if y'all remember, every time one of these campfires came up in the storyline, you would be forced into a solo fight where it was actually very, very difficult. They were called the Irks, and basically you had to like understand what you were allowed to do. A lot of them had like revive cheats and things that made it so that if you tried a one-shot, you would actually not be successful. So they've been kind of organizing the worlds in terms of difficulty like this, and Darkmoor and the level 180 update is no exception. While a lot of the world is full of very, very doable minion fights and many, many boss fights that are totally fine solo, occasionally, especially at the end of every major area, you'll go against bosses that are actually much, much harder. A lot of people are saying notably harder to solo than other worlds. Now, whether a new update is too difficult or not is always too hard to tell. I think it's kind of notorious because a lot of people play through it for the first time in a team. Very few people try to solo it until fewer people are playing it. But I will say this. Even if the enemies are harder, even if the cheats are a little bit crazier, there is one major tool that is going to increase everyone's power right when this update goes live. And that is the fact that all of these 3-pip Rochambeau spells that they added like 4 years ago, they're going to go from only allowed in PvP to be allowed everywhere. And this is something that I noticed, especially when I was questing during Test Realm, especially when we went against harder bosses. These were very, very useful. Quite unfortunately, these do fall under the category of cards with symbols that a lot of people do not bother interacting with. And here's my honest advice. I think people should use these spells, should interact with these spells. They shouldn't pretend they don't exist, because then you will make soloing way too hard for the Darkmoor update. That is, in my opinion, inevitable. If you don't interact with some of these spells, it's just going to be harder than it needs to be. But here's the thing. There's a lot of ways to actually get your, like, you know, feet wet, I guess, when it comes to this type of stuff. But basically, right, what I recommend, go to Diego, learn whichever ones that, you know, counter the hanging effect that you're struggling with. You'll know which hanging effect it counters based on the symbol on the card. And if you do not know the symbols, the best way is to mouse over cards that already have the symbol. It'll literally tell you that a harmful ward is this symbol, and a harmful ward is the same thing as a trap. It might take a little bit of searching, but you can find, you know, like a spell like Banshee, and it'll literally tell you that helpful charm or blade is this symbol. I'm not saying that this is intuitive. I'm not even saying that Wiz has done its best job at conveying all of these symbols and what they mean to the player. But definitely, this is an entire range of very, very helpful spells that are all trainable from Diego that have been, until this update, only allowed in PvP. This should make a lot of stuff possible that wasn't, and these are just the beginning. The Jin, Oni, and Scion spells for every single school are also, they've taken that little PvP only symbol off. It's the most spells we've ever seen allowed in both game modes, but I definitely recommend interacting with that if you're worried about the solo struggle. That being said, the team experience, I feel like it's very doable. So for a lot of people, especially for their first time playing through, I think grabbing a group is the way to go. Now, the other thing that's been a point of contention for a lot of people is, and this is something that we've also seen repeated over the past few years, how good is the gear? Let's say that you actually get to level 180, should you also spend time farming for the gear? And here's the deal. If you look at the Reaver and the Stalker set from Wallaroo, or even the equivalent set that they made, the Con Hanzu setups for Selenopolis, what you'll notice is, template-wise, you get a direct upgrade to the main storyline gear that we already have. So Reaver and Stalker gear, you're just gonna get a level 180 version. You're gonna see slight increases in things like damage, resist, pierce, HP, all of that. And it seems like they've already kind of gotten close anyways to all the damage that they want to allow. You see schools like Storm, for example, only gain about 2% damage from just directly upgrading all of their Reaver gear. However, despite the way that the gear is, Wiz is also doing something different with Darkmoor that I think makes the question of whether getting to level 180 is worth it totally different. And that's the fact that every single shadow spell in the game is getting reworked. And for some reason, not sure if they meant to do this or if it's like, you know, I guess just game design. This is all basically only accessed at the very, very end of Darkmoor. So if you're interested in doing more damage, if you're interested in using spells differently, and if you're interested in being more powerful, I would argue that getting to level 180 is mad worth it. However, I think for once, the answer is not in this gear. They're minor upgrades that I wouldn't really lose sleep over. You can honestly make getting the level 180 gear more of a long-term goal, especially as you accumulate badges for clearing certain bosses or reagents that you need to actually craft some of the upgrades. But I really think the reason to get to 180 is for the shadow magic, which is not something you could access at like even level 171 or 172. You really do need to get to like around level 179 or something, I want to say, to actually gain access to all of that shadow magic. And that's where a lot of the power increases are. On a very optimistic note though, y'all, I do think the fact that they've actually done so much in such a small period of time with the console release and the Darkmoor test realm, I really think that this is something I did not expect to do so well. When I didn't see them announce that test realm was closed and that the live realm was going to be launched back to back, I got a little nervous. And I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen a lot of these rumors around. People are saying, especially because they had wait times trying to log into PC a week ago, that Wiz was somehow trying to make console supported by removing the server capacities of PC. I think a lot of people were speculating on that. A lot of people were also saying that test ROM servers being up along with PC and console was also affecting the server health of PC and console. I would love to know whether any of that is true from Wiz themselves. That's actually up to them to communicate. Like, are they actually like selling out some of the server health of PC to support console while they're waiting to get all the upgrades that they've been talking about? But regardless of whatever the answer is to that, I do think that test ROM, for them, they've stated this in the past, it is expensive to have those servers up, meaning it is some sort of server load that they're paying for that now either they can pay for to support console or PC, or they just don't have to pay for. And they've done all of that in the context of all these people flooding all these other servers. I think what I'm trying to say is it's very, very impressive. I think I would have understood if it delayed the live launch, but they really seem to not let it get to them, I guess. And hopefully what we'll see is an update that doesn't have bugs that make the game unplayable. That's something that we unfortunately have gotten used to. Anytime there's a big update, normally it's fine, but then there's some sort of bug that makes it so you have to wait a week or so until it's actually fully playable. I'm not so sure that'll happen this time, just based on the fact that they're juggling this with console and it hasn't delayed the live realm launch. But we'll have to see, and I do think part of the feedback is we'll have to keep them accountable, right? If the live launch has some issues with it, we do have to raise the question of whether it's sustainable to do all the things that they're doing in such a small period of time with console, with PC, with test ROM, all of that. There is a learning opportunity there if it's a disaster. I don't think it will be, but I'm just saying. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on whether y'all thought that test realm going into live realm would be delayed with all the craziness on the game. What do y'all think of Darkmoor's difficulty if you had a chance to play it? And what do you guys think is the real worth of getting to level 180? Do y'all agree that it's in the spells and not the gear this time? And how do you feel about that? I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts in the comments. I hope y'all hype my boy. I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow on the channel, but hopefully something Darkmoor related. But yes, definitely turn on noties for that. There's going to be a lot of Darkmoor content after live launch, so that should be fun. Noties on, everybody. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.